everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Coaches podcast. I am Fer, and as always, I'm joined by the guy who knows more about data breaches than most people know about their own bank account. Bill.
Well, somebody's got to stay on top of this stuff first, so otherwise we'd all be in deep trouble. So we're coming here today with the second podcast that we put together. It'll be on all the social media platforms, and it'll be sliced and diced up, of course, into some shorts. But with that, Fer, go ahead and get started with today's episode.
So today's episode, we're diving into cybersecurity, or as I like to call it, how to keep hackers from turning your online life into their playground.
Yeah, and it's not just about the tech. Lots of people think that they can rely just on what formerly was called antivirus software, and now it's more technically anti-malware, and there's a couple of other acronyms we're not going to get into today because that's what people pay us for. But I can tell you that the tech is only one part of a solid defense. We're going to get into the other parts of it a little bit later and tell you why those are really important.
So here's where we ask, why should you care? Let's talk about a bit more about cybersecurity should matter to you.
Yeah, so it's not just about your bank account or your email or lots of things that you think, oh, this is the very easy thing. It's almost the tip of the spear, because the more that people can get access to these systems, the more they can learn about you, your company, your family, what's important to you, et cetera, and then can go on and really wreck any of those if they really intend to. I'm not going to talk about one of the worst stories today, but I can say that it was really, really bad because someone reused a password, which we're going to talk about in just a bit. But I can say a lot of this also has to do with your reputation and also your loved one's privacy and why this might matter.
And we're not even mentioning identity theft, which can ruin your whole life.
Yes, there are a number, while you're talking about that, there are a number of identity theft protection services that are out there, reputation managers, things like that. We will talk about those in a future episode because some of them are worth it and some of them are not. It just depends on what you're trying to protect.
And if we think about it, it's not only about what you have, it's also about how easy it is for someone to take it. So if people often think like, I don't have anything worth stealing, so no one is going to come to get me exactly. And I will say, when you're trying to steal something or go and steal stuff from a house, you don't go to the bigger house, you go to the house that has their doors open.
Yes. Lots of people say all the time, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. I don't have anything to hide. And I'm like, well, you think you might not have anything to hide. And then after I do a live event and start sniffing the air for the Wi-Fi signals, the traffic that's sent, all of a sudden people are shocked at that sort of quote unquote invasion of their privacy. So again, don't think you have nothing to hide. There's a quote we'll mention in the description that is really important about something related to the French Revolution. But anyway, I know you've got a couple things to share next.
So here is where we come to my favorite part, which is the Hall of Shame. And I will call it the dumbest ways people can get hacked.
Yes, and this is not an exhaustive list. So when Fernanda and I really talk about these things, we're giving you examples. We're not talking about absolute an exhaustive list of everything that's there. So the first one is very easy. It's using the same password for multiple accounts. So I will say, whenever I do one of these sessions at a conference, I'll ask people this question. What was your first password? Don't say it, just think of it. And so they'll think of it, and I'll say, what was the first number you added to your password when you were told you had to have a number in your password? And so naturally, this is a little bit older audience, and they'll say, oh, the number 1 or some other number. But basically, it has to be from 1 to 0. counting all the way up through 9. And then I'll ask, what was the special character you added when you very first had to add a special character? And almost unanimously, the answer is an exclamation point. And if you think about this, this is how the hackers will think. They'll think, how do I attack someone with this information? And so, armed with some common, basically what I'll call human programming, along with some of these advanced tools, you can really take advantage of things. So definitely don't reuse your password.
And if I'm honest, when I started working with Bill, like when he told me that, I was like, because I didn't only use like the same password for a lot of things. I've used like variants of that password. So I will change a bit on the numbers, a bit of the phrase that I was using. So that is also something to keep in mind. Not because you change 3 characters, it means that the password is safe. And I will say like everyone has issues with their memory and trying to remember the passwords. So also having a notepad with your passwords is the worst thing you can be doing to just so you can keep it in mind.
Yes. Well, actually, I'll give you one exception to that. It's better than reusing the same password everywhere. However, I would not recommend that anyone write down passwords or store them in an unencrypted Excel file. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to show in one of our future episodes is how you can unlock a locked Excel file. But again, we're not going to get into that today. So the next one is downloading these unverified applications. There are a lot of people who will go online. It's particularly through their web browser. And in a larger corporate environment, they might have protections against this, or they might not even be able to install things in a larger environment. But our audience is the home user, people who are in small businesses that have the ability to install things. So what I'm going to say is just don't install something without taking the precautions Fernanda's about to let you know.
Okay, so also just so you also think about it, the younger audience where what you're downloading are games online. Also keep this in mind. It is really important. Also those fake Word apps or PDF apps so you can use for free. Remember that not everything that is free is really free.
Correct.
So another thing to keep in mind is that you don't download something that isn't from the App Store or Google apps or any of those that are kind of, I will say, they have certain controls to keep those apps secure, to keep your privacy also secure. Another thing is like your computers. You also need to keep your, well, would you say your antivirus or?
Yeah, well, antivirus is going to be the term that almost everyone uses. That's in our audience, but there are new acronyms like MDR, EDR, and terms like anti-malware. But ultimately, some of those can't even detect these because they change so frequently. So the bad programs change so often. They actually are designed to beat some of those programs.
And also you need to double check the pages where you are downloading those apps because sometimes you can be confused thinking you're going to the official webpage for that app and it may be like a fake one that only changes like a little part on the URL. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, like the letter L is very similar to a 1. So there are lots of things like that, 0 and O. So keep an eye out on those things for sure.
And also for the mobile apps, you have to be really careful when they ask for too much access, like access to your camera, access to your microphone, or even to your pictures. So also keep that in mind and be more secure when you're using.
Yeah, we're actually, I would call it, we're lucky now that both the Google system, so Android, and also the iOS operating system are now starting to ask you if you want to grant things like full access or limited access or only when using the app. So that is improving, but it continues to evolve. And we all know that the bad guys are trying to outrace the good guys, if you will. And it's a constant back and forth. And so being aware of it is just as important as relying on the technology.
And just one last point that I will recommend is if you're at a company and they have like an IT team, before downloading anything, you should ask them first just to make sure that that app is safe.
Yeah, and if you don't have a team like that, or you're curious, or it's something where you're doing this at home, that's what we're here for. So reach out to us and ask what we might think about that, and we have some tools that we can run the either a link or a program or whatever through, and very quickly tell you whether it's legitimate or not, or at least give you our best guess.
And another one that I will put on the Hall of Shame is ignoring security updates. Like,
Yes.
I know that you may be working through a Word, and if you're like me, you don't save as often, which feel always tells me that I'm doing it wrong. I should be saving. So if that happens to you, or you're just like, I can stop using my computer for like an hour or the certain time that it takes to do those updates, you should keep in mind that those updates also fix security issues where all those hackers or bad people that are trying to get your information may be able to slip through.
Yes. And this is something that unfortunately is way too common. One of the items that we have in our tool set is the ability to reboot our clients' computers, because we know that when someone gets a message saying, hey, it's time to reboot your computer and apply the updates, most people don't reboot the computer or choose do it later tonight. They will just say, oh, I'm just going to ignore that. And once they ignore it, then the patches are not put on there and they're not getting the protection that they need. So for a couple of our clients, we actually have set rules up that when they are finished working, we know the time zone and the hours when they're done. They leave those machines on, and that's when we reboot for them, because we know, and typically our point of contact knows, the employees are not going to do it. So again, put those on, because I can't quote the exact source of this, but I believe something like 90+% of all of the problems can be avoided if people just regularly put their patches on. Now, that does mainly apply to Windows. Mac's a little bit better about that. But for the Windows audience, which is going to be the majority of our audience, I would really, really encourage you to pay attention to that "it's time to reboot" option.
And also, here's where I'm going to put a little bit of a commercial for our work.
Yes.
If you have Windows and you're like any normal person that doesn't know that also some of the drivers need to be updated manually, you can come to us and we can do it for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great point, because not only is it the operating system that needs to be updated, but other programs. And one that I see most common naturally are the web browsers. Then there's Zoom, which I think everybody has installed in their computer. And the other part that people forget about is, if they've had their machine for a while, they've probably forgotten some software that they have installed, and so they might not know to open it and have it check for the updates. So yes, that is a little plug for our service for sure.
And also, just to keep in mind, this doesn't apply only for computers. This apply for your phone. This
Yes.
apply for some of your things at home. For what I, for what Bill told me a little bit ago, is that you also need to update your internet. How do you call it? The box.
Oh, the firmware on your Wi-Fi router and almost any other hardware that exists inside an office. So whether you're at home, so like at home, I had one that auto updated it, but where we are right now, I can connect to that box, which they have not locked down, by the way. And I can see that they do not have the latest version of the firmware. And the firmware is similar to an operating system like Windows. It's just for the Wi-Fi router. And so make sure that that is in the plan to do. And sometimes that can be automated, sometimes it can't. But that's a great point, Fer. It's not just the phone or the computer, but also some of the other hardware that might be around. Luckily, things like our new smart TVs and things, they will do that on a regular basis now.
And another one that I would like to add is using easy, guessable answers to security questions.
Yes.
So Bill and I have talked about this a lot. He has one example that is really good, and I have another one. And it is that the questions that they ask you, the answers are easy, findable, or known if someone knows you or just looks in your Facebook or your Instagram or anywhere else that you put your information. So something to keep in mind is you should lie on those answers, but you should be also able to remember what you lied about, because if not, you'll also be left out of your account.
So let's give a real life example here. We are recording this and we're in Mexico. And for those of you who may or may not know, when you have a full name in Mexico, it's typically your father's name, father's last name that you will go by, but your mother's maiden name is the name that will also be listed on other documents. And so looking at it from the perspective of someone in the United States, you might think, oh, all of these systems use what is your mother's maiden name as a security question. Well, guess what? You don't have to be here in Mexico in order to know someone's mother's maiden name. There's plenty of publicly available information that will help people find out information like that. So when Fernanda mentions when you are setting up security questions, I don't know if I would use the term lie. I would say use false information. It's a prettier thing maybe. And so what we would do is when you're faced with those security questions, make sure to enter those into your password manager. And again, we prefer Keeper. It's very easy to use. It works on mobile devices, it works on the web, and it stays in sync. It also handles the multi-factor authentication, which is really nice. And so those are the types of things that you would put into a system, and then it tracks all that information for you. So you're absolutely right. A lot of information is found on social media sites, but there's a ton more that can be found, especially in the US, using these reverse phone number lookups along with the quote unquote background check websites and things like that.
And also something else to keep in mind is all the history you have put on your Instagram or your Facebook. Like maybe your mom's maiden name isn't on your name, as Bill said, but you could go in the Instagram of the person and have a picture of "Mom, happy birthday, I love you," and have her like tagged.
Yes.
And that way you can see the name of their mom. So it's something to keep in mind also, to not overshare that much.
Yeah, there's a digital cleanup process that I think everyone should probably do at least once per year, as long as they choose to use the services. And that also gets to a topic we're not going to talk about today, but that is forgotten accounts. And so we'll have that in a future episode about how to find your forgotten accounts.
So this comes back to our last point, which is sharing personal information too freely.
Yes.
Something to keep in mind is that if you don't have your accounts private, or even if you do and you accept almost anyone, your information is free for anyone to use. Like any comment you do, any picture you post, that is all enough information for someone else to use against you.
Yes. So it could be your birthday, favorite vacation spot, all kinds of things like that. People can start to look at that and think, well, is that part of one of these security questions? And again, like she said in the very beginning, it's not that anyone can guarantee any sort of absolute protection. It is to make it just a little bit tougher to get into your accounts so that you don't have to deal with the downtime that comes along with having to recover your identity or having to explain to your boss about how you got hacked because you used a super easy password or a reused password.
And if you're an oversharer like me, I know you will be like, oh, it makes
Don't
me
say
so
that.
sad.
Don't say that.
No, but this is where I'm going to tell them other options. Like iPhone has this new app that is a journal where you can put all the things that you would like to say for everyone to see, just for yourself. You can put pictures, you can put a lot of information there that you want, and just keep it safe with a strong password. Now let's dive into some real life hacking disasters that could have been avoided with just a little bit more awareness.
Yes. So we've got, I have plenty of stories from the past 30 years of doing this, but we felt that we would choose some that are semi generic. They do come from, one or two come from Reddit. And the reason that we did that is because we don't want to give away any of our client personal information. Um, Obviously, that would not be a good thing for our business. So, what we're going to do is talk about a subreddit, and it's a person who had money stolen from a bank account. And so, the person suddenly found out one day $18,000 had been removed from a bank account. Didn't know why, called the bank. The bank said, tough luck. And at first, the person was kind of clueless, like, well, why wouldn't you return this money? I didn't move it out of there. And they started fighting with the bank. And after some explanation, they got about $10,000 back. But the bank was playing games with about the last $8,000. And then there were some other items that happened along with this to make it in the subreddit mildly infuriating. So for if I were going to explain this situation to you, why do you think the bank might say, I don't want to give you the money back?
I feel like it could be that it wasn't their fault or they're not fully um guilty of it. Like there could be some reasons that maybe it didn't have like all the multi-factor authentication on their accounts or didn't have the notifications
Yeah.
so they can be aware that some money was stolen. And it makes me feel like maybe he didn't say it with like as quick as he could have, like when it just happened
Mhm.
to maybe 2 weeks later when you check your account and notice that that big amount was missing, which I feel like is still really frustrating because as a smaller company, that amount could be like budget for a lot of things.
Yes, it could make a huge difference, especially not only there but on the personal side. And money, like many things, is relative. So maybe the person decided, I'm not going to check it. It's 18,000, and they've got 4 million in the bank. However, one of the main reasons that a bank might say, I don't want to return the money, is because according to the bank's records, if let's call it the bad guy may have logged in with the correct username and password. And if there was no multi-factor authentication, then to the bank, this looks like a legitimate transfer of funds. And so, what we would encourage you to do is not only make sure that you've got multi-factor authentication set up, but also that you have limits set that can be transferred or moved at any one time. And some banks allow that. Some banks will only make you aware that there has been a request for that to happen. So, these are things that you need to do. And again, we're going to come out with a basically a calendar of things that you want to look into once a month, and it's only going to take about an hour. And we'll have an episode very similar to this explaining what to do with certain banks and how to do those things. So that's why the bank might have said no. The other reason is maybe it was a legitimate hack and the bank's security system did not detect it. There has been one instance that I've been involved with where the bank's system should have detected what occurred and it didn't. Um, I won't name the bank or the client, but I can say that I was incredibly surprised that this bank allowed this transfer of funds to happen.
So something I will recommend using this story as an example is Don't pass your information to anyone, even if it's family. Not
Exactly.
saying that your family is bad, just saying that you need to be more careful. Also, every certain amount of time, you should be changing and updating your passwords. And keep in mind what we talked about before on our Hall of Shame. Make them hard, make them difficult, and don't use them anywhere else.
Yes. And put them in the password manager.
Okay, so now passing to our next story. So picture this. You are a billionaire, you have your crypto app, and you go and check, and 230 million gone. Oof. Out of nowhere, you don't know what happened. That is what happened to the person on this story. It turns out that 220 something guys decided to do like a hacking situation with the guy, but they did it in the something that I would never have thought could happen, which was one got on the call with the owner of this account, and the other one got on a phone with the crypto place, and they passed the information like that. Like with the guy, he pretended to be the crypto place. They were like, "Can you pass me your information?" Blah blah blah. The guy gave them the information, and the other one pass it through to the
Yeah.
crypto guy. That way, they were able to access the account of this person and stolen all this money.
Yeah. So that gets to this point of making sure that you understand what is and is not to be suspect. So, in the example that she's describing, it was literally two people right beside one another, one pretending to be the crypto service, and the other talking to the actual crypto service and getting things to be transferred. So you have to be able to detect what is real and what is not real. And sometimes it's very difficult to do. I got a phone call today from my bank, and um, I said, "Hey, this sounds great, but I'm going to call back and then I will chat with you guys about it." Because some banks will call you and talk to you. Some crypto services will, some will not. For example, in the US, you won't get a phone call or an email from the Social Security Administration. So people that call and pretend that, that's definitely fake. So knowing what some of these things are really important, and this is where we're going to recommend that you subscribe to our newsletter as well and follow so you don't miss out on some of these, because these always change. There's always some new scam. There's always some new way to get into something or something you need to be aware of. And without flooding you with this information, we want to provide it in a very helpful and practical manner. So if you do like that, whether you're signing up for the newsletter or you're following us online, please do so so we can not only help you protect yourself, but also those you care about.
And also, just adding on a point on this part is that normally the banks wouldn't be asking you for your information. They
Yes.
will guide you in how to work through it online, or they will help you with it, but they will never call you and ask you for your personal information. So keep that in mind too, unless you're calling them to do some changes. And that's where they could ask for a certain number. Do as Bill said, tell them you will be calling back and look for the specific number from your bank. Don't call back to the same number because you're going back to their own hands. So,
Yeah. It could be a great way for you to call a scammer. That's for sure.
and just to finish this story, I want to close it with the funniest part, which I was saving for this moment. These guys were caught because they were gifting Kellys in the bar. Like, you will be pretty, you will come up to them, they will say, give her a bag, and you will go out with a brand new bag. So TikTok started like going around these videos of girls getting those bags, and that's how they got caught.
Yeah. So once you make the money, I forget what. Yeah, I was gonna say I forget what movie that it is, but Normally you do the heist and then you hide the money for a year or two and then you actually start doing something. These guys could not resist the urge to have fun and go out and try to be superstars.
But just so you know, we're not telling you to do it.
Correct.
You should not do illegal stuff. And now finishing with our last story. Bill, do you want to do the honors?
Yeah, I was going to say the this one again. It hints at the social engineering part of things. So social engineering is when a non-technical activity occurs to try to get at sensitive information or try to gain access to a certain system. So what happened is that someone called a particular company and the customer support rep was essentially conned into giving up private information on a person, and they were able to get basically a bunch of access and then eventually extort someone. So having a robust cybersecurity training protocol is really important. If you're a small business, it's a no-brainer. It's probably required as part of your insurance. But if you're an individual, this is one of the reasons that we want people to pay attention to what we're doing here and also join our newsletter, is because these are things that we can help you stay on top of. One of the things that we're going to talk about in the next episode is something called SMS spoofing, which you could say is text message spoofing. It's why using a texting system as a multi-factor item is not the best idea in the world. It might be your only option, but it's not the best option, that's for sure. So social engineering needs to be avoided, and the best way that you can avoid it is through education. And then, unfortunately, that education cannot stop because of constant changes in the scams.
And we also have it on our service.
Yes.
So you
Yes, for sure.
now we're passing to one of our last chapters of this episode, and it is Cybersecurity 101, how to actually protect yourself.
Yes.
Now that we have scared you a little bit more into action, let's talk about what you can do to keep yourself and your devices a bit more safe.
Yeah, so, and I feel like we're beating the proverbial dead horse when I mention this, but it is definitely using unique, strong passwords. And some systems will not allow you to do it, particularly if they're older systems, but any modern system should allow you to put in at least 12 characters. And naturally, you're going to store this in your password manager. You're going to have a unique password with it and use multi-factor authentication. Now, the multi-factor authentication that we recommend that you use is not a phone number that texts you. And again, in the next episode, we're going to talk about why you don't want to do that. But for now, we want to make sure that you don't use something like very generic passwords. So what's our number one password that everybody knows you shouldn't use?
Password 123.
Yes. So I can't imagine how many places still allow you to do that. And there's also one other tip that I'll add in here. For those of you who think that you still need to change your password on a regular basis, the new guidance from, it's an organization called NIST and then also Microsoft as well. As long as you have multi-factor authentication, you should not need to change your password ever. Now, the exception of that being if you ever got hacked or someone learned that one, it would be a good idea to do it, but you don't necessarily have to. So here's the funny part, and I didn't know this until I read the report. For people that had to change their passwords every quarter, they were changing it to the season, the year, and putting something like an an exclamation point on it, so that everybody who was inside the company would kind of know what a person's password was. It would be like spring 2025 exclamation point. So that seems crazy. And that's one of the reasons that we don't, is because we want to remove predictability. So make sure that you are using a password manager to store unique, long passwords and use the multi-factor authentication.
And also, don't use personal information on those passwords. Remember that your birthday can be seen even if you have it on Facebook. If someone posted a picture of your birthday and how many years you were turning, like your dog's name, which I was guilty of until I met Bill, if I'm honest. Also, I will recommend something I do is I don't have the brain to do hard passwords. So what I do is I just let my password manager make them for me and I just use those. And sometimes the password managers, in this case, Keeper, also lets you put the amount of characters you can use, which signs can and can't be used, and also like any other specification, which makes it really great because there are some web pages or apps that doesn't let you use certain signs or other things. Also, as Bill said, like the amount of characters could be less than what we will recommend, but it will help you do the best password you can have for what they are requesting of you. So just keep that in mind. And if you want Keeper, we're going to put the link below.
Yes. All right. So take number 2, Fer.
So it's something we already mentioned. As Bill said, we're going to keep repeating it because you need to also remind yourself of these points. And it is to keep your softwares and devices updated. So
Yes. And whether you're working with us so that you don't have to worry about it at all, the majority of our clients don't even want to think about IT. They just want us to handle it for them and behind the scenes so that they can go about doing their own work. One of the biggest items is not only do we apply the updates, but you've got to reboot for them to take effect 9 times out of 10. So that's another part that if you are constantly hitting the I don't feel like rebooting option, we would highly encourage you to do that. And all it is just a reminder. You can put it in your phone or in your calendar app once a week, reboot your machine, and it's that easy. If you want someone to take care of it other than us, make sure you're telling your local IT team to do it, whether they're in-house or whether they're serving you from a far away place like we might be. If we happen to go on a trip, we can still access all of our tools everywhere, which is something actually we will talk about in a future episode. Is how does work from home affect IT management? Well, that's a later episode.
and something else I wanted to add on this one is that some computers and phones let you put it automatically. So when you're sleeping, it looks like the best times to do those updates. For example, in my phone, I will put it to do at night. So it knows that when I'm not using my phone anymore, it can just do all the update, restart, and do whatever it needs to do. So on those cases, just keep in mind to keep your phone or your computer turned on. So the next step we want to talk about is enable multi-factor authentication on your accounts.
Yes, so we all know and have been presented with options for multi-factor authentication, and multi-factor truly does mean multi. It can be a number of things. It could be the SMS message, which again, we don't recommend. It could be a dedicated application. Now the new password managers have multi-factor options built in, but you also have options like Windows Authenticator, which probably has a different name now since it's a Microsoft product. It might be just called Authenticator. And then you also have the Google Authenticator, and there are many more that are out there. But for most small businesses, any of those will work just fine. Again, we just recommend that you do not use SMS if that is possible. And on some older systems, it's not possible.
And if we talk about them, at first I was a bit like worried of using them, but they're honestly really easy to use. It's just like a token that changes a certain amount of time, and you just have to enter like the 6 numbers on your account and it opens it. And as Bill said, like if you have the password manager, it sometimes even fill it itself and you don't even have to think about it more than just opening your password manager.
Exactly.
So the next one will be to use a VPN for public Wi-Fi. And on this one, Wi-Fi is great. Sometimes you're at the supermarket and you may not have like enough data to check your bank account or do anything else that you will need to do when you're outside. Just remember, free Wi-Fi isn't free per se because you have your door open for anyone else that is on that same Wi-Fi. So that's why using a VPN can protect your device from anyone else that could be lurking around looking for an open door they can go in.
Yes, and some super privacy folks will tell you that a VPN is not necessary anymore with some of the new protections that are out there. We still believe that we're not quite at that point where you can avoid using a VPN. So we do highly recommend it. We've got some recommendations of different VPNs that you can use. Frankly, they all work great. There are also some other dedicated tools that will help you detect malicious hotspots. So if you go into a hotel or let's say a supermarket, or it could even be an office, there could be a malicious hotspot and you shouldn't connect to it. And we'll talk about that more later in another episode.
And the last one we will recommend is be a bit skeptical of suspicious links and emails. When you're like looking through your email, checking what you got, and you see a weird email from your bank, make sure that the email that is sending you this, it is the specific one for your bank. It shouldn't have any changes. I sometimes even look for it online to make sure that it is the real one, because you never know how these cyber criminals can be trying to reach you. And also sometimes those links, just clicking it could like instant download something and have like a big chain of people sending emails to other people with those links, and then it turns into everyone is infected.
Yes, and that's not only bad for your reputation, but it could be sharing your company secrets or other company data. I will say, right before we started this, I happened to get an invoice from a company, and it came to my personal account, and I knew immediately it was not real because it was a subscription service that someone from a Gmail address wanted me to sign up for and pay, not the actual company. So what Fernanda's talking about is absolutely correct. Double check the sender, double check the urgency that goes with it. We'll probably have an actual lesson to talk about how to detect some of these, because 2 or 3 years ago, they were pretty easy to detect, but now with AI, they're getting a little bit tougher to detect. And so we'll probably create an episode specifically for this. So in the event that you are suspicious, go directly to the real website and then log in from there. And if you've got a message from that service, it will probably show up in their system.
And also something else to keep in mind is you can look also for the information that you got in the email. I will normally, if I check the account that I received it from and I don't recognize it, and I think it may be a scam, I will normally copy the information that I'm getting and paste it online. And sometimes there you can see other people that have been having like the same emails, and it turns out
Yes,
it is a scam too. So keep that in mind. And also something Neil said is, if you also follow us on our social media, we also put images and pictures where you can see some tips of how to know if it's spam or anything else that you can be wondering, how can I notice it? What can I do myself? There you can find all that information.
yeah, we can change the one I just got and put it up as an example. Well, for sure. So we want to wrap up the episode with a couple of quick notes. The final thing that we talked about were very practical ways that you can secure your online accounts and protect yourself and your data. That also extends to your family, especially kids now, and maybe some aging parents, or just friends who think they don't have anything at risk. feel free to share any of this and forward it on to them if you want to. So one of the things that I'm going to say is that instead of being reactive to these things and letting something happen, be proactive. So if you're interested in working with us, just reach out, leave a comment here. You can email us with the contact information or send us a message on one of the social media sites. And we'll get back to you and talk about how we do this assessment, not only for security, but also for the computers that you use in general. There's no cost to do that. It takes about 2 weeks total for everything to run, and we learn about it. And then after that, we'll present you with a report of what we believe you might need to do. And at that point, that report's yours. You can act on your own, or you can choose to sign up for one of our services if you want us to just handle it for you. Because we do want IT to be as easy as flipping a light switch.
Also, my final thoughts are, we're all human.
Yes.
We all make mistakes. But what you can do is try to take all these steps to avoid those mistakes, to change your life, I will say. Because like we know now that social media is everywhere. As Bill said, your kids may have it, your friends. I have friends that have like their worst passwords, and I always recommend to them, like, you need to be careful and do that too, because at the end, if you protect your circle, you can also protect yourself. You never know who can have a certain information of you that you maybe don't want anyone else to see. It doesn't mean that it has to be bad, it's just private information.
Exactly.
So be safe.
Yes.
And like, subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment of what other topics you would like to hear from us. If you have a story, you can also put it on the comments and send it to our email. We would like to do an episode where we go through your issues and stuff that has happened to you and what things we can do to avoid it from happening again and be more careful. And also, I hope you liked our video. I hope you like to see us. We're going to have our next video soon. Keep thinking of us. And just follow us in our social media and click the notification button so you can know when we upload anything else.
Yep. Have a good night. Thank you.